All right, all right. Islam.
Islam, peace and love, everybody.
Love.
We're going live late. Um, we know it's late, but we know we definitely had to get some concepts corrected and cleared up. Um, and this is Matriarchal Mondays, and we definitely want to start a new series where we are featuring some of our mothers and some of the topics
Mhm.
that they want to discuss to help clear and correct some concepts so that we can go into um, this new age and this new cycle with a better mindset and being able to actually use the tools that we actually have at our
Mhm.
disposal to better assist our fellow man and humanity to help them to restore themselves back to a nation. Okay, and right now, if you are paying attention and watching what's going on to our nation, um, to our people specifically, I think there's a lot of spells that's being cast verbally, and there's a lot of different abuses taking place, but there's also uh, a lot of tricks and scripts. So,
Mhm.
uh, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our uh, mothers. Mother Shuri in the middle. Uh, Mother Shuri is one mother who actually came on board with us. I want to say, was it last year? Uh,
Yes, definitely.
yeah, and she actually has blossomed, and she has been a part of the movement and been helping us to restore our nation. And she's getting into the occult, the sciences, law, history, religion, you name it. Um,
And
and
for
then,
those who got a little nervous when you said occult, please, exercise uh, etymology. And when you look into the original meaning of occult, it actually denotes to hidden. So we're not talking about anything satanic when we say occult, we're
Right.
referring to hidden knowledge. Okay, so just wanted to clarify that.
that's right. And so, and with that, we're grateful for her and all that she has been contributing to the movement, um,
Mhm.
even teaching her children and her kindred. Uh,
Mhm.
we have Mother Gianna, uh, who has
Uh-huh.
been, uh, what, since 2 years ago, maybe?
Yep.
2 years
I
ago.
applied. I'm a little in
Yeah,
denial too, but
2 years
definitely.
ago.
Hmm.
Yeah, and she's been studying same topics, same things, and have been making an impact on a lot of people's lives, been giving them literature, information. You can hear her up. She'll give you books, free books, a lot of information. She's been very um, vocal and on the front lines with this information. And
Hmm.
she's very excited to broadcast, um,
Yes.
to share this information with everybody, um, to help clean this situation up. So um, we're going to try to get into this right away and no further delay because it's already 11:50. Um, but we're going by the moon cycle. So
Yes.
um, matriarchal Mondays and mothers. What do you have for us today? What do you guys want to get into?
Okay. Well, just so everyone can know, I've been harassing these two about going on live so we can discuss the social issues that we're currently facing as a nation right now. So I'm so super excited to do this live. I feel like, with another mother being here to bring a perspective and maybe in a way that I'm unable to, of course, with the brother providing the masculine perspective or, the energy that he gives to kind of bring this whole thing together. I think you two are the perfect ones to help me relay this message that I have been really eager to share with the people. So before I get into what I was so excited to talk to everyone about, I do want to give a small disclaimer, the same one that I gave in the last live we did, and that is In this information, in this video, you're most likely going to hear some things that may turn you off, all right, because it's new. It may make you a little bit uncomfortable because it's new. And it may be against what you currently believe in. One thing about belief systems is belief doesn't change facts, but facts should change your beliefs. And that's one of the goals that I personally have, because I feel like our people as a nation, we take our belief systems and the things that we believe in, and we convince ourselves that that's all that is, that's all there will ever be, and it's time for us to break out of that cycle, because that means that if we have been trained to believe a certain thing, then we're subject to be stuck in that mental training for the rest of our lives until we break ourselves free. And the only way for us to do so is through knowledge, true
Right.
knowledge. And so I feel like this platform is the perfect way for us to introduce this knowledge. So again, you may hear some things that are a little uncomfortable, maybe very new to you. You may, it may emotionally get you, you know, a little irate or frustrated. And all I personally ask, all we can ask from you is to not allow your emotions to allow the disconnections. First and foremost, I would say take in the information, you know, take it in, investigate, dissect it, analyze, and then make that judgment in which you definitely be in a better position to decide whether you want to incorporate the principles and the information that we're sharing today into your lives. And I hope you do, because it's imperative to the future generations
All
that you
right.
really what we have to say. So I have seen a lot, and we've all have seen a lot that has happened amongst our people in the last couple of months now. From the way that we, handled the COVID-19 when it was first introduced to us, to now the way that we're reacting when it comes to, everything that's going on with this Black Lives Matter movement. And I see that our people, they're really fed up. And the problem with being fed up to the highest level of festivity is, when you don't have, when you don't know the solution, when you don't know the cause for all of these effects, when you are misguided and more importantly misrepresented, we all have a tendency as humans to just allow our emotions to dictate, our actions, our
Mhm.
thoughts, how we even, get together. And if a lot of people are in this place where the only way they know how to react is through their anger, and we're all feeling angry, when it comes together, that energy, that powerful energy is going to have a bigger impact, but in a wrong direction.
Mhm.
So
All
I
right.
was hear me out, because it's not too late to change. We can save ourselves. We can change our future generations. We just have to start with ourselves. So in order for us to start with ourselves, we have to first study the information that we're going to present to you in this video, and let's just do better as a nation. Okay. Now, there are fundamental principles in which every person should live by. These fundamental principles are the laws of nature. You know, these fundamental principles is relative when it comes to acting civilly, as civilians under this um, particular. Civilians is a tricky word to use, because yes, we're civilians in the aspect of us being the highest level of citizenship by us being nationals, but the type of civilians that are surrounded around us right now, we know that those are citizens that are more so subject to what is now being controlled by the demo-controlled pseudo-government. So it's two different types of citizenship. So that word is we have to be careful in that usage. Speaking of words, one of the most important things that I really, really want to stress, and I want to start off with discussing in this video, is the importance of words, okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our ancestors, first and foremost, let's talk about this, okay? When we talk as a people, as a collective, when we talk about our history, when I say our people as a collective, I'm talking about right now specifically our people, but everyone around the world, actually a lot of them know our history, but everyone should be aware of our true history. So when it comes to history, right? We have to break down that word and realize that it's his story. You know, some people say his story, but you know, why add the extra S? Because when you break down, you know, his and Tory,
Right.
you realize a lot of meaning behind Tory part. Brother, do you want to go into what Tory means just really quickly for the people?
Yeah, robbery, theft, murder, um, you name it. It is everything
Mm-hmm.
dealing with the principle of colonization. And everywhere on earth that we look and find the democracy taken around the world, we see um, that's evidence of where they have gone to conquer and colonize every place they took democracy. Democracy um, is not constitutional and is not for the people. It's for the colonizers. So we look at his Tory, his robbery, okay, and everywhere
Mm-hmm.
he has went on this planet. When I say he, I'm referencing the European Albions, modern day European hybrids. They have conquered and colonized everywhere where they have taken democracy.
And the bad thing about it is we knew that. When it comes to us really seeking the truth, we'll realize that the truth is right there in our face.
Yep,
We've just been too blind to see it this entire time.
hidden
So
in plain sight.
hitting in plain sight. And so when you think about it, they told us that we were colonized, you know, but the falsehood in that is that they told us that they colonized the Native Americans and they brought us over here from Africa. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the problem with wordplay. One, when you put an S in front of words, you get swords. And they've been using words as swords when it comes to the demo-controlled pseudo-government creating these anti-constitutional legislation to convert our unalienable rights into privileges and immunities. They use the words as swords when it comes to the methods of social engineering in which they have subliminally made the people take on identities that aren't of official uh, status according to law, you know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of they use the word police, so let's just be careful and be aware of that as we're going on in this video. So
Mm-hmm.
it's right because they tell us when it comes to his story that we were from Africa. Few things I think is ironic will really, really interest, especially when I was introduced to this information. About 100 million years ago, this entire um, this entire world was connected as a supercontinent. And I really, really do wish the screen is big enough for me to show you a picture right now. But y'all, please, Pangea, look up Pangea. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
for those who don't know what Pangea is, you will see that 100 million years ago, this was one big supercontinent. What you will see is in the northern part, you have what is Asia today and Europe. You will see that that's towards the northern area, and then towards the biggest chunk of land in that connection is Africa. Okay, but back then it was considered Asia Major, and that European now considered today Asia area was considered Asia Minor. And you know, that's initially where the term Asiatic comes from. Whenever you hear it and more science. Actually, is that it right there, brother? You know, me personally, I prefer some colors, but I think it still is get the it gets the job done. Try to push it back just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, so as you can see, it was one big supercontinent. And when you actually look closer, you will realize that when the shift in the plates created the Atlantic Ocean, it was the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa that actually broke away, okay, from the motherland. And the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa is now called today North America, South America, Central America, and the adjoining islands. So again, when you put all of the continents together, you will see that technically even this area we're currently living on, well, not living, but the current that this area that we're currently on was part of Africa. So when it comes to our school systems, the government funded institution, they all trained us to believe that this area was separate from Africa completely, entirely, you know?
Mhm.
But in reality, it was just given a different political, it was given different political jurisdictions, okay? And so when you think about in history, they don't go back further than slavery. And the
Uh,
schools and the institutions, they don't go back before slavery. They make us, when we talk about our ancestors, the first thing as a people, as a collective, yes, some of us are different. All of us are not the same. But as a collective, when we address our history, and let's, just for the sake of this conversation, because we really do have to recognize the power in words, I'm going to replace history with origin. So when it comes to our origin, we are taught that we were sent over here from Africa, which was true but false, as you can see. See the truth and the lies. So then they told us how Christopher Columbus came over here, discovered the Native Americans, and then conquered us, or conquered the Native Americans. But what a lot of us, what I found interesting is one, that in those institutions, it's like, all right, so when they tell us about slavery, they labeled this as history, you know? So if this is the history of America, why are we learning more about those natives, those Aboriginal people that lives in America? We learn more about the so-called slavery times and the histories and the institutions than we
mhm.
do about true Native Americans. We need to look at that and really analyze that. And so then when you actually go look at these Native Americans, you realize, when it comes to features, when it comes to the features that the Native American had, can't you see that they have more qualities in relation to us than they do with the Albion European, the modern day Europeans, right?
Mhm.
So when we look at that, most of us don't even, because of the lightness, and then some of them so-called Native Americans were just as dark of us as well. But the truth of the matter is, not once did we as a people realize, wait a minute, we might be the same bloodline. We actually may be the same people. We have to see, here's dogma constitutes, right? Giving people rituals and symbolization for certain truths of reality without it being explained. And a lot of the concepts that we've
Right.
adopted, we didn't get no explanations for those things, religion or otherwise. We didn't get any explanation. We got, this is what it is. We shouldn't question. We shouldn't doubt it. We put all our faith in it, put all our energy in it, put into all of our awareness and attention into this because this is what it is.
Mhm.
And when you actually start putting the pieces together, you start to realize, like, wait a minute, something not right. And I feel like our people knew that the way that our people are being treated, the way that this so-called system works is pseudo, because we know that it's pseudo government, but most people think it's actual government. This government structures work, we think it's just, you know, it's just broken, and it's always been this way. And when it comes to, religion, we feel that, the religious institutions have our best interests at heart, and they really want us to be, connected with the divine energy, and really want us to, you know, find ourselves and save ourselves. When,
Mhm.
the reality is, in the Bible, even in the Bible, it was the priesthood that was responsible for the death of Jesus. So again, that make people feel uncomfortable, but we have to recognize the connection in church and state, in which they tell us is separate, but in reality they're all in cahoots, and we have to see how we've adopted these concepts into our everyday lives without truly questioning them. Yeah, please
Well, real
interject
quick, let me jump in real quick.
please do.
Yeah,
Because
I didn't
a
want to
lot
be
of
rude.
times,
It's
a lot of
okay.
times our people go by when you try to go back in time. I want to say history. When you go back in time, a lot of people are already on the wrong platform because they are given certain um, names and titles and brands and tags to look up. So, like for example, like Native American, that's a brand in itself.
Mhm.
And Native American, like there's no such thing as Native Chinese, Native German. It's just German. It's just the nationality. But when they
Mhm.
put these brands on it, so you got Negro, Black, African American, Colored, Native
Mhm.
American, Indian,
Mhm.
um, Spook, Sean, Jigaboo, Coon, Latino, Hispanic. You
No.
notice how they keep reclassifying, and then you look at the European. They go from Dutch, French, German, um, European, um, Irish, Scottish, um, but then they go from all of these terms to straight white. Right? And it's only ever been that. They haven't been reclassified each time
Mhm.
over and
Right
over and over.
after they enslaved, well, right after they colonized America, that's when they took on this identity as white people. Hmm.
Exactly. And so our people, even when going back into time to find out who they truly are, um, they have placed, the colonizers have placed a lot of different brands and tags there just so when you go to research, you have to sift through all of that just to get back to the ancient titles, which will help you to know your true identity in law and in linguistics. So I think even when we identify with that, we got to really get back to um, knowing true timelines, timetables, and dates um, to even get to the core matter of what we're trying to research. And I think a lot of times our people get caught up in the phenotype, looking at the body or the epidermis in the skin, looking at the quote unquote pigmentation, but that doesn't identify the bloodline itself.
I'm sure it
And
does.
when you
No, what
look at,
gets me is
yeah,
where our people, well, our parents never asked questions. They just did what they were told, or they just accepted what they were told instead
mhm,
of asking questions. And I know it has something to do with the times astrologically, but
mhm,
it still gets me sometimes where I'm like, you never thought to ask this, or you never thought. So then, they grew up teaching us these same things, but here we come and we like, no,
right,
Not
this don't
right.
sound right.
right,
So we start asking questions, and that's kind of how I started coming about. And with this whole Black Lives Matter thing, I had to get off of social media because
mhm,
I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, okay, Gianna, your jacket that you have on, that
mhm,
is black, your eyebrows may even be black, maybe your eyelashes, I don't know, but
right,
your skin is not black.
right,
Mhm. It is.
Attire,
Mhm.
mhm,
attire is black. You
Hmm.
know, a tennis shoe is like what you are
Right.
not,
More
but you
important,
are like a
colors.
copper color, like a penny. You know, you're a
Hmm.
different shade of a penny, and it's like, can y'all see this? Can y'all really
Right.
see this? And then on top of that, the mask with the I can't breathe type of sorcery. That
Hmm.
is sorcery. That is
Hmm.
spells that you're doing on yourselves with a
Exactly.
on top of saying I can't breathe, and then you have a mask on your face at the same time.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
it's two factors that it really proves what you just said. One, because we know the how that words have vibration, so when we speak life by saying and identify ourselves by Black, and when we say I can't breathe, we are actually manifesting energy and frequency or different scenarios that's on that frequency level to manifest into our lives. So, and the other factor is, it's funny because yeah, they say I can't breathe, but literally their face mask is covering. It's a situation where it's covering and then disrupting the airflow of the body. So your body is
Hmm.
releasing carbon dioxide. I put a post up earlier today about this. Your body is releasing carbon dioxide, right? And
And
we're
you're
supposed to
breathing it
take
back
in
in.
oxygen, but with the face mask, you're releasing carbon dioxide and then breathing it back in and releasing it and breathing back in. And at some point in time, there's a restriction of oxygen. And I see people working out, y'all. You know how everybody made a frenzy about, oh, they got their masks on in the car, they stupid, they dumb. That's how I felt with people were working out. Like I'm just like, you
I've
can't.
seen that too. I've been to the track and I've seen three women. They were on the track together and they all had their mask on and it was like 90 degrees outside. And I'm like,
That's a
I
superpower.
wouldn't, yeah.
They all
Oh, and
look
then
different.
going back to the sorcery part, anything after anything after you say I, you start to put that into play into your life. So if you're saying
Mhm.
I am,
Hmm.
the worst thing
Black.
ever or
Oh yeah.
whatever, then you will start to manifest that. And actually you've
Mhm.
Self
actually
affirmation.
manifested it already because you said
Mhm.
it.
Right.
Mhm.
It was a thought before you actually said it out of your mouth. So we
Hmm.
Mhm.
gotta pay attention to the things that they put out there and we just following it and not asking questions. Oh,
Mhm.
you put a black what was that stuff they were doing? Putting a black box or a black
Yeah.
The
thing
blackout
on your
post.
social media blackout post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you ever stopped to think, oh, who started this? What was
Mhm.
this? What is this about? What is this for?
Mhm.
What is this? I mean, brother, if you want to elaborate a little bit on what that actually meant in regards
Yeah.
to putting the blackout post.
Yeah, and that's like blackout. When you look up the root word, it means losing consciousness, right? Is this
Mm.
like when you get drunk and you blacked out, or somebody slap you and you black out? Like that's what they don't realize that they're saying. And it's going back to when we study the Kabbalah and it talks about the anode and cathode principles, the I am and the I will principle, where
Right.
one person is giving you the argument to argue against them as they slap you. And that's what our people don't realize. And you repeat the lie, and then everybody keep repeating the lie and don't realize that they are oppressed, they are colonized. Um,
Mhm.
your oppressor is giving you the uh, argument to make, and his argument is that um, no justice, no peace, and all these other things. He's the one starting these slogans. He's the one starting all of these different things, and then you are repeating them. And this is how they are buying more time to do other things behind closed doors, like try to pass a de facto legislation to vaccinate you because you so enthralled in his arguments that he gave you. Now I'm going to pass legislation to exterminate you, and all people fall for it a
Mhm.
lot. You're not conscious of it. So
Mhm. Yeah, I got a lot to say about that vaccine piece, but I'll address that after after I talk about what I feel like people definitely need to consider. So consider this. We know that the Europeans wanted to gain their independence from under the rulership of King George III, right? There's a big debate about whether King George III was a Moor or not. Um, by by those who are not familiar who Moors is, Moors are short for Moroccans. We are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa, like I talked about earlier, i.e., us. Okay, it's us. Whether you want to embrace it or not right now, It's up to you. It is fact of the matter. When you get into the study, when you start to analyze, when you start to investigate, you will come across more studies to prove it to be true. But that's up to you to go into it. But what I tell you is, as a person who I feel like uh, um, coming to this move for the first time, I knew in my heart that I would rather be associated with an actual piece of land than to be associated with the color who has no standing in law. So look, so my example is, so you got these Albion Europeans who trying to gain independence from under the rulership of King George III. And so they come over here to these lands and they see, the unity. Our ancestors, they knew how to operate within their sovereign statuses. So they did. We established courts. We established courts for the simple means of two sovereigns having a dispute, being able to go to a neutral platform to receive a remedy, in a lawful manner. We set up we had a governmental structure already set up here to protect and secure the rights of the sovereign natives of the land. And so, and our kindred, the system that was set up, we was homeschooling our cherubs, our children. We were self-sufficient, and when it comes to growing our own foods, we knew how to go back to Mother Earth when it comes to healing ourselves with herbs, and restoring the deficiencies in our bodies by consuming the fruits and vegetables that provide the vitamins and minerals to ensure that our organs are running efficiently. So we had a really great structure and way of living. So with the Albanians, they come over here, they looking at our great lives. Look, they looking at they're looking at men having multiple women and everybody's being happy. Everyone's, we had ancient customs and traditions, and they knew that they weren't a part of original man. Y'all, we have to know there's a difference between man, which is short for humanity, and then you have mankind. We keep using the term interchangeably. Oh yeah. Go ahead to the fore, brother, because you get really cool with it.
And now you have woman,
right?
Man. Then you have
women being us,
right, and then man. Then you have human and mankind. And all of these distinctions gotta be qualified because they are hybrids who are running the world. That's like the Planet of the Apes movie. They're telling you the truth. They have taken over the world. There's no disrespect because a lot of us been created as well, and a lot of us are ancient Lemurians and children of Mu and Atlantis. So there's a lot of experiments that entails what happened with that. But yeah, just wanted to make that distinction. But real quick, let's look at something Benjamin Franklin said. This is a quote from Benjamin Franklin. He says, "Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters."
Wow. Yeah, so, because they lost themselves, so they need somebody to give them that leadership, that order, that authoritative position in which they feel like they need to be guided from.
Right.
Which is interesting to me because all this buy black, do this, let's create these communities, let's do this. But you're saying go and vote for an oppressor to oppress you again.
That's right.
That doesn't make sense.
Right. And you got to think like, okay, my oppressor is oppressing me. He's giving me the argument to argue against him. I make the mistake of sending my children to his school thinking that my oppressor is going to really teach him how to be something in life. And then when he get his paper that says he graduated and he has this degree of knowledge, now all of a sudden He's smart, he's educated, she's educated, she knows something, when the condition overall of our people is not that virtue of that virtuous nation that Benjamin Franklin was talking about. You gotta ask yourself, if we're so righteous and gods and all this type of stuff, then how can we solve this simple problem of this colonizer? Um,
Mm-hmm.
we talk about Nibiru, Anunnaki, all these different things, but we can't solve the simple problem here on Earth. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what, you know, uh, it puzzles me how we act when it comes to, trying to solve this problem. You keep identifying yourself as something that your colonizer gave you and told you that you are. And it's like we're just so in love with this Albion oppressor.
Oh yeah, they get upset with you when you
Oh
tell
yeah,
them that they are not black.
oh
They get
yeah.
upset with you. They'll even tell you that all of them are not bad.
Uh-huh.
I mean, come on now, they're slave catchers, and you're
Oh
the
yeah,
slave. So
oh
what are
yeah.
you?
If
Yeah.
you if you automatically have a system set up and designed to oppress people, to violate the rights and the human rights and the birthrights of people, and you're going to flip the argument. Once again, this is what the colonizer is giving you, to say that not all of them are bad, even though they are part of this job to rob. That doesn't make sense. If I sign up for a job to rob somebody, and we're going into a bank heist, and I'm all three of us put on masks and all these different costumes, and we gotta go rob these banks every day, and we're robbing banks, and sometimes people are getting murdered, sometimes people are getting injured, and over and over, people are saying, "Well, not all bank robbers are bad. Not all of them are doing wrong. It's some of them that's trying to do good, and our people don't see that this is the common trend. Um, the colonizers are toying with them. We don't know universal law. We don't know divine law. We don't know nature's law. We don't know constitutional treaty law. We don't know scriptural law. We don't know any law.
State law, trust law, contract law. We don't know a lot of laws.
We're violating the laws of the land every day, and we're not a
Mm-hmm.
virtuous people.
Mm-hmm.
Think of all the other nations of the earth. Yeah, they're being oppressed by the same colonizer, but they don't, to an extent, endure the same type of things we do because we have fallen the lowest. And in order to restore our people, they have to get instructions. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
reading another quote. This is by James Madison. James Madison, I know for some of you, you're gonna say you're using the colonizers quote, but this is before these colonizers was in power. They were minister plenipotentiary for us as trustees over or under the Sultan. Uh, James Madison said, "A well-instructed people alone can be permanently a free people." The problem, the issue that we're seeing in our people today is they don't have instructions, and instructions deals with the authoritative um, uh, process of thinking and implementing systems. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
those
For
instructions.
ourselves, we depend on other people to provide
And
those instructions for
we
us.
saying just basic stuff like plant
Exactly.
you something on your porch so you can
Hmm.
eat it.
Exactly.
And I done brought that idea up to people that I know, and do you know they gave me excuses of why they couldn't do it?
Mm.
And I'm like, you just don't
That's
want to do it. You just want to go to the
hmm
store, which may soon not be there. And you
hmm
really need to learn
right.
how to govern yourselves and how to feed yourself. Like,
That's
And we
seriously.
got because we got too lazy, and the lazy came from everything being handed to us when we
mm,
once had the abilities to do for ourselves. So now we
right.
got the grocery stores to provide the foods, we got the hospitals to provide the medicine, we got the schools to provide the learning systems. You
Hmm.
got everything is basically taken care of for us. But the problem is those institutions are literally operated under the same people that are oppressing us and colonizing us. And yeah, it's true because those and the people that's in those positions, the teachers, the policy enforcers, the all these people that they are considered agents. Yes, they still have to take responsibilities for their actions. So they still need to come into this knowledge to realize exactly whose side they're really playing on. Because just because
I
you're,
already looked at it as if they already chose their side. Once they chose to
but
make that decision to go that way, they already chose their side. And they use
they
the
did it
excuse and they say, "Oh, we got here because we wanted to change. We wanted to make a
right.
change, and that's the reason why we wanted to be a policy enforcer."
Right.
No, you're gonna do the
Right.
same thing
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tom Henry or Sheriff Tom Henry tell you to do, that's what you're gonna
Mhm.
do. You
Yeah.
ain't making no change. It's no
Yeah.
change. You
Mhm.
went into their corporation. You signed up
Mhm.
to do what they told you to do, and they ain't tell you to make no changes. You can't make no
Exactly.
Right.
change.
Right. And there's some people
But
out there that'll be like, well, if it's controlled, those institutions are controlled by oppressors, well, we need the police department. We need the fire department. We need the hospitals. We need all of these things. Now,
No.
what we have to realize is that, we need to be able to provide for ourselves. So our communities, we need to make sure that we are aware of how to do for ourselves, but those institutions are not bad. It's not the venue, it's the administrators. You feel what I'm saying? So
mm-hmm.
to have a fire department or to have a police department is not a bad thing, because
Mm-hmm.
technically they're all supposed to be acting in positions of public servants. So they're supposed to be serving on behalf of the public.
Right.
The problem is those institutions that's created now are control mechanisms. They are infiltrated systems. They are agents. The people that's on the lowest level are agents on the behalf, acting on the behalf of those people that are empowered to oppress us. So, when we have those people in those public service positions, but they're actually doing harm to the community, that is not constitutional. That isn't under divine law. It's not under common law, and it's not the type of infiltration. It's not the type of operations that we need to be living under,
And
or
let
operating
me
under.
and let me say this. Martin Luther King said, "I fear I have integrated my people into a burning house."
Mm,
Well, a lot of our people justify the statements saying not all are bad, not all police, not all Europeans, or not all whatever politician. Well, if the house is burning, you don't have to go inside the house to change it and make, or I'm going to try to put out a lot of fires to make this thing better for everybody. No, if it's burning, we need to get out. We need to do for self. And a lot of our people have gotten conveniently dependent upon the system that was created, uh, and to the point where a lot of stuff that makes sense to do, common sense would tell you, okay, if this oppressor is violating every category across the board, leave. You don't
mhm,
see hyenas stand up under lions because they get
mhm.
eaten by lions. They leave, they band together, and they come together. But with our
Yeah.
people, we try to say, well, not all lions will eat you. Some of them will play with you. And this is the um, constant violation and why we keep seeing the same results. So,
Mhm.
let me ask you a question. What do you think, or what can you offer as far as solutions for our people um, that you witness that continuously say this Black Lives Matter argument that George Soros and his party gave them? Um, Again, he's a European. He's an Albion descent. He gave you that. He's funding that.
Yeah.
Um, what solutions or things we can offer to help our people to get in a better mindset? Because that's the first
Mhm.
thing. You gotta have a change of mind before you can change the situation. Because a lot of times you can do the actions, but your mind still be focused on
Mhm.
colonization. So what are some of the solutions you think we can offer to help improve
We,
the situation?
we are doing it right now. I feel like the most important thing we can do right now is share the knowledge, okay? Because when we share the knowledge, it really does. It changes the way that we think. When we change the way we think, we change the way that we feel and how we react. And the thoughts and emotions together creates a different frequency in which we emit. So when we all get together and we're able to vibrate on a different frequency, that of a higher frequency, only then we'll be able to look at things from a high level perspective. Right now, we just so subject to the things that we've been taught and the things that we've been taught to believe to be true, and we're just stuck in that. So I think that another important thing is just clarity. We talk a lot about how we get here, and so, we talk a lot about remedies too, but I think that it's really important for us to just stress the importance of the cause. So when they understand the clarity on how we're being impressed, then maybe they can understand exactly how different things have been structured in order for us to not be introduced to information in order to free us. But that same information has been given to the Abiyan Europeans, in which they've been using in order to provide, or in order for them to live under a private citizenship in which they get, immunities and different privileges and benefits in which we don't, because we don't know ourselves, and we don't know the law, and we don't know the history or the origin in which, allow for us to be in the current position that we're in. So oppression. Oh, matter of fact, go ahead before I go into how would you like to answer that question?
I mean, well, first they gotta understand nationality. They have to understand that who they think they are, they're not, and they have to be willing and open minded to new information. Because a lot of people, you break their heart when you tell them something that they known all these years. They ain't ready to hear something different. They will get upset with you. They will get mad at you because they feel like they are what they are and what they told they are since they were little. So they gotta be open minded, and they have to really think about and use their brains and really think here. Like we've been going through the same thing universally for years, and when it comes to personal lessons, it's the same thing on a universal level. So we got the Malcolm X, the Martin Luther King, the Rodney King, all those things that's been happening over and over again. And that's the universe letting everybody know y'all ain't learned y'all lessons. So y'all keep going through the same thing over and over again. So they have to realize, like, they just have to come to realization, like, this ain't right, this ain't working no more. Something we have to figure this out. If they can't get past that little small part of realization, then I don't know.
Yeah. Raw dude. No, I'm joking. But no, yeah, you hit a good point. And when you said that, you made me think about this quote. Changed my life when I heard it, man. Woo. It was like, challenges isn't retribution from a vengeful universe. Challenges is, put into your life for you to overcome personal weaknesses. And as a collective, our personal weakness is a lack of knowledge. And that's why I think it's important for us to go back to the basics. So the example that I was giving earlier, it was important for us to recognize how they even, so-called conquered the Americas, in which, eventually provide the system that we're living under today, or we operate today. So they tried to gain independence, right? The mother left. Here you go, mother, come back to us. Okay, so okay, so they wanted to gain independence, and these is the Abiyan modern day Europeans, the minister plenipotentiaries who was trying to gain access to do business with us by the Sultan of Morocco. So after they was granted permissions to do business on the land, that's when we became the United States. It was the uniting of the natives of the Americas, or particularly in North Mexico, in the efforts to finally eliminate the hundreds of years of wars between the Christian and Islamic religions and the Roman Empire and the Moroccan Empire, in order to eliminate, the conflict. We, took a moral position in saying, hey, you want to, gain your independence, the least we could do is allow for you all to come over here and do business on our land. And that was the basis from the construction of the Treaty of Peace of Friendship, 1786, 1787, and then later 1836, I do believe, right? 1836.
1836, 50 years later.
Right. Okay. So, and so once they actually, oh, she's gone. She's gone for real this time. I hope
Yes,
she's gonna
come back. Just go ahead. Keep flowing.
okay, because all right, I wanted her to hear this too, because I never know when she want to, do her input. So, all right, and so you actually have now you have the natives and the Albion Europeans uniting and developing what is known to the United States. What a lot of people don't pay attention to is that we used to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school. Y'all remember that? I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands. Not only did the Pledge of Allegiance support the fact that we once operated under a republic form of government, Article 4, Section 4
Mm.
of the Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government. So there was a point of time in which we operated under a republic form of government, and we was operating under the organic constitution for the republic uh, um, of 1791, and we actually still our economy was based off of
Mm.
greenback, which was the greenback. This is, of course, the way that the whole trading and debt trading system. It went from the bartering system where we traded skills, talents, and just skills and talents, and it was another commodity. I want to say salts, but then it went from the
Spices, herbs
hmm,
and spices.
of course, right, and herbs and spices, absolutely. And then we went from the bartering system to the commodity system, right? And then that's when we used to trade rice and bits of gold and things that was considered of high value during that times. And then so from the bartering system we went to the commodity system. From the commodity system we went to the coinage age, right? And so the coinage age, the coins was actually made of electrium, which is a mixture of gold and silver. So even during the coinage age, our economy was operating under a system of those things that were actually of true value. And then from the coinage age, we converted over to the welcome back. So from the coinage system, that's when the Chinese introduced the first form of paper money, and then we actually converted over to the certificates. Now, during the abrogation of the gold clause, during this time, because for a second I was thinking about whether it was even before that, but during the abrogation of the gold clause, all of the neighborhoods, all of the people of the land was directed to turning their golds into the bank. Now, initially, this was implemented so it would be easier for us to do transactions. Can you imagine having a big block of gold when you're just trying to make a small purchase of a vehicle or, conveyance or something, of a smaller, a value amount? And so gold certificates was introduced to us for the sake of providing us with the easier form of transactions. And then, before you knew it, there was the overthrow of, of the government, the de jure government. Then you had, Congress adjourned Sine Die, and back in 1861. And from the Republican form of Congress adjourning Sine Die in 1861, that means that every single piece of legislation from that point is notwithstanding. We have to comprehend that, because that's a really, really big one. You feel what I'm saying? Because it wasn't Article 3 judges that was supposed to authorize the delegation of authority to the sheriffs and then the policy enforcement that currently operates on the streets. There was no more Article 3 judges. So there was a lot of a ripple effect that actually caused for us to reach the point of servitude, and just a disharmony and a disassociation from our true selves and the way that we used to operate. And from ancient cultures, I'm talking about Coptic cultures, we lost all of those levels of knowledge once the Congress was, well, once the government was overthrown. So what you notice is, right, when you think about what is required in order for these people who technically isn't represented by a nation of power, and they want power because they want to be able to operate as sovereigns rather than slaves. Okay, fun fact, well, not fun, but it's a fact. Slaves derives from Slavics, which was the Albion Europeans back during the day where they were actually they were the slaves. Please reference White Cargo. That book goes into it. And so we have a system where these group of people, they want power, and it first started in 1492, the overthrowing of the Moors in Spain, and the fall of the Red House, and then in 1861 they actually overthrew the Americas. And so when you think about what is necessary in order to disassociate the natives from their land, how can I do so? Because there's too many of them for me to just, and it's so little of us for me to just be like, all right, y'all under my control now. No, it's not that simple. So what do they have to do? They have to act according to estate law, and they have to act according to trust law. They have to act according to contract law, and that's exactly what they've been doing. So they turn our estates into the states, right? And through the 14th Amendment, right? So I see a lot of people think that the Emancipation Proclamation was actually a doctrine put into place to free the slaves. But what it actually did was transfer over the ownerships from the slave owners to the government, and it turned everyone into U.S. citizens, ultimately tax slaves. Okay, and so where they once, because they were doing business on our land, because we had this agreement, they once paid tariffs to us, to the natives of this land. And now we're in a position where we're paying tax to them. And this under the sea, what they did was, because it was overthrown, it wasn't like a publicized, everybody is now currently aware that we are now operating under a complete colonial system, a complete demo corrupted pseudo government platform. It wasn't publicized that way. What they did was they continued to operate in a form of true government as they drained us, as they drained our energies. I'm talking about from all planes of being, spiritual, physical, and mental, And so, do y'all want to jump in? Because
you on a roll.
I am
definitely on the roll.
I am trying to make a point. Go ahead, brother.
But they you're absolutely correct. They stripped a lot of things from us, and one of the things that I see that is very evident with the protests and the riots, they stripped the common sense from people.
Yeah, that was possible.
They stripped the common sense from people, and it's to the point where if you see your people being murdered, not killed, there's a difference, being murdered by another group of people, and every turn you look, you have in all categories across the board, these distinct people, bloodline of people, continue to harm your people in every way. Why would you want to march with them? Why would you want to dance, pull out hot sauce, pray, kneel, do all these things? You need to heal as a nation. You don't need to integrate with them and say, "See, I found 10 that will stand with me as I chant the chant that their fathers gave me, or their relatives gave me, or their bloodline or their nation gave me to say as they do these things to pacify me." And I'm going to read this quote. "The good sense of the people will always be found to be the best army. They may be led astray for a moment, but will soon correct themselves." And what you see today is self-evident about people not having good common sense. You have a lot of celebrities getting these pacifying these people, talking about, well, we got to do this another way, and we got to, don't tear up my house, but let's think about this. Let's be rational. And all these celebrities trying to step out and go to the protests, and people are really following that. Um,
Mhm.
and a lot of different factors about these riots and protests, our people have already pointed out themselves. Number one, a lot of these people are not even from these territories. They're coming here. Number two, a lot of them are going on Craigslist, seeing these ads for actors, crisis actors. Um,
Mm.
and getting paid $15 an hour. A lot of these people, these rioters and protesters, got hoodies on, earpieces in. They got all these different things, showing that they are not the people of that territory. They're destroying stuff,
Mhm.
tearing up stuff, and then a lot of it's a win-win for them.
Mhm.
The colonizers. A lot of the property being destroyed is so that they can um, continue to portray to the world. Look at these people who lack common sense. As we have to stay the trustees over their estate because they don't have common sense. They'll tear the
Yeah.
they get a chance to claim insurance on a lot of this stuff because they're getting these people to tear it up for them. Um,
Mhm.
and then when you look at our people um,
And you
pointing
know
this,
what? It got to a point where people were starting to wake up, but then they had to pay these people to come out and do
oh
some
yeah,
damage so they could
control,
trick their minds and get them to into
control.
doing it again. Because it
Yep.
was like, nah, we tell them to shut down. They shut down, but they too peaceful right now. And we gotta do something to
Right.
get them to act a fool. So let's pay
Mm-hmm.
these people to come out here and act like, you know, they're mad and they're upset. You can get the other people to join in with you, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
all one game. It's all one
Yep.
setup.
That's
Mhm.
right. And this is what they do naturally anyway. Just look at the Europeans when they look at these sports events and their favorite team lose. They riot, they tear stuff up, they burn cars, they throw bricks at buildings, do all this stuff.
They
This
act
is
thuggish.
natural.
They act
Right.
thuggish.
This is natural
Mhm.
for them. So when you look at our people and they're walking and protesting and doing all these things or whatever, and then next thing you know, you see these European Albions come up next to them with these signs and want to get in the mix and show that I'm with you. That does nothing for our people, our nation. If you want to prove to
Yeah.
us that you support us, go home.
Yeah. It's sad
Let us
because
deal.
it's sad because
And you
it
know
seems like
what? During those arguments, I was telling, I don't know if I was telling you, Gianna, I was like, I never hear them saying back to a European, go back home, you go back to Europe,
because
where you from, you go back
they
to
forgot.
Rome or whatever. I
Hmm.
never hear
They
them say
forgot.
that. The argument is always a European telling a Moor, you go back to where you came from because you're not from here. And this is like, no, no,
Mhm.
no, no, no. I
Mhm.
never hear that argument. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that day that somebody say, you go back to Europe, you
And
go
yeah,
back to
but
wherever it is that you from.
and that was the
'Cause you
reason for
ain't
why
from here.
they that's exactly the reason for why we used to know them as Europeans, but they throughout the years they got us comfortable with saying white people. So we adopted white people, and then of course, I mentioned this before, free white persons and law denotes to those with a sovereign capacity. So with the vibration that we emit when we say white, we give them authority over our land in which they do so. And so because they treat themselves and they consider themselves as Americans and we give them the ability to do so by calling them Americans, then that's ultimately we forget that they don't even belong here for referral. But can I address
So
something really quickly because I feel like I want to address this because we don't condone violence. We don't condone violence. So and there's a lot of misinformation that's going on even within the Morse Divine National movement. So here's the thing with the Abiyan Europeans, all things must to return back to its original form and original source. And we are going through a transformation. The reality is we're going through a chromatic cycle. The chromatic cycle is, y'all look up troglodyte nigger. I really, really wish I can try to spell it for you, but I think I'm gonna get a letter wrong. Triglyph Lodyte. Troglodyte. Matter of fact, hit that
Tribe.
microphone. Troglodyte nigger and say it. Troglodyte nigger, Niger. And what you will see is caveman people will pop up. And so what initially happened is a lot of people not ready for this, but please just receive it, whether you like it or not. Just receive it and then do your research later and your judgments later. So you had these beings which were known as caveman to us, and through in the Yucatan Peninsula, we actually had our mothers conceive with these beings, okay, for the sake of experimentation. And so that is initially where their species come from. And so what we did, because we created these entities, I guess you could say we consider them as pets, okay? But the problem is we were never supposed to create something and then so we sleeping with them and then still treating them like they're nothing to us, you know, because technically, you know, when we create them, we we had that love for each other in which we should have gave to them, but we didn't. We treated them like crap. And again, it's different references in different pieces of literature that goes into further details. But the karmatic debt that we're facing is we treated them, some would say even worse. Well, I don't say worse than they treating us now, because even though, you know, we did them dirty, we still let them keep their tongue and their language, and they stripped everything from us, including our language. So I wouldn't say it was done worse, but we treated them really, really, really badly. Not all of us, but it was some of us. But we all are paying the price for the actions of the few, which is kind of what's happening now with this whole situation, because the actions of the few is getting people, putting people in place where now or everybody on curfew, and that's another story. The thing is, we don't need to. We're in a position when we return back to the knowledge of ourselves and return back to our royal status, we don't need to then be like, oh, yeah, we know now. And we know that y'all ain't who y'all really think y'all are. And so off with your head. You feel what I'm saying? As angry as it will make us, as it does make us, especially people that's coming into this true knowledge, we have to be and operate within our higher selves to know that we can't treat them as bad as we treated them and as bad as they treated us for the last centuries of years. No, we
Well,
don't become best friends with them, but that doesn't mean that we have to try to exterminate them the way that Hitler exterminated the Jews. No, I feel that because we've created these beings, we have to make sure that they know who we really are so they can treat us as with respect as they should, and give us the honor in which, you know, they should, especially when we take the honor and for us and when we start operating in honor within ourselves. But they need to respect us the voices we are, and yeah, most of them, all of them need to go to back to where they came from. But I feel like those Albion Europeans that can respect us and can and can accept the fact that they're not in the position of entitlement, or, you know, all of those other traits that they've adopted because they've been in this, you know, pseudo position, or this position of authority for so long. You know, I think it's a way for us to coexist. We have to learn how to coexist. We can't just screw all of them. I don't think that that's the route. Sorry.
well,
The ones that
you gotta.
confirm, yes.
You said the ones that are who?
The ones that confirm, yes.
Oh, oh, so as long as they can work for us, they can say, huh? No, that's the same
Well,
slave
but you got see no, but
But then
you can't.
you just said that it has to revert back to its original thing.
form of us being in our royal positions, not us enslaved
But you
women.
can't. But see, but we gotta
I'm
qualify
joking.
some stuff, because we think just because we suffering now that we righteous and the earth is gonna honor us and put us back just because we going through these things. And it's like, no, you're suffering still because this could have been over. You're suffering still because you're still violating law. You're still violating, and you don't know. And just because you don't know that you're violating, that doesn't excuse it. Because ignorance of the law is no excuse. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and when the law of the land that your ancestors create say if you corrupt your own bloodline, you're committing treason, then you have to go back to the laws of the land and figure out how do you correct that situation. And you correct it by being in honor of your bloodline. A lot of people are not, and they continue. Like, if we're going to heal the situation, we gotta, like you said, return to the source. If we return to the source, that's the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1786 and 1836 still in force, and that's the Constitution of 1791. And if we're going to return to the source, we got to enforce the Constitution. And since our nation is in distress, we have to heal, and that means that all other nations got to go home as we get ourselves back to restoration. That means that we have to um, decolonize our mind, decolonize everything on the land, to get back to the supreme law of the land, the standards, the national standards and principles, because we keep interjecting the Europeans in everything we do, trying to look out for it. We don't need to look out for them at all, because that's what they got their nation for, to do for themselves. We need to look out for ourselves, do for ourselves. And how we do that is by decolonize. We have to decolonize and get back to this national standard. Okay, so when the prophet said, when Noble Drew Ali said, to declare your nationality, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we're teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed. We have to teach them what these things are. Most of our people don't know anything about nations, nationality, um, creeds, morals, ethics. They don't know, and they think just because I go to an institution that has a cross or has a symbol on it and has, I get a spiritual, I feel good after I hear a good word, that spirituality, and it's like, that's not going to cut it. That's not, you're not getting morals, ethics, and creeds from that.
And
You're
then they
getting,
go there
mm-hmm,
and they do all kind of sorcery there. Like the first of the month, they do like this communion thing where like they're drinking the blood and they're drinking the bread. And I'm like, you do know that that's some type of witchcraft, right? And if I talk to you about some occult,
mm-hmm,
knowledge or some type of um just creating an altar for your ancestors. You look at
mm-hmm,
me like I'm crazy and I'm sideways when you go to
mm-hmm,
these institutions every Sunday and
mm-hmm,
once a month you drink the blood of
mm-hmm.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Like,
you
come
can't.
on,
That's,
man.
If you
you
anything
talk
like my
about
mom,
necromancy.
if you anything, because it's funny you mentioned that, mother. I promise you, I just had that conversation with my mother yesterday. I made her so uncomfortable. She was like, all right, I don't want to talk about it no more. But I was like, Mom, because her argument was, it's not blood, but it's not blood. We don't drink blood. And I'm like, Mom, it's not. It's the symbolism. The wine and the grape juice is the symbolism.
The
It is
symbolism.
representation
That's
of
all
the
you
blood.
need. That's all you need is a
You want
symbol
to
of
hear it?
something. If you
Do
don't
you want
have
to?
if you don't have it, you make it. You
Yeah.
make something out
Right.
of it
It's
to
a dead
become that
culture.
thing. And it's like y'all have been doing sorcery. What is all that shouting and speaking in tongues? What do you think that is? You
Yeah.
think that is witchcraft?
Mm-hmm.
What are
Mm-hmm.
you
That's
talking
dead
about?
culture.
Mm-hmm.
That's dead
It
culture.
is.
And when you look at it, they say, "Oh, we can't practice none of that stuff. We can't look at the stars, astrology. That stuff is evil." And and I think to myself, so the constellations are evil. That's
So
brainwashing.
the planets are evil.
They're evil.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're doing all of this occult stuff and necromancy and all, that's evil. Well, you guys do it
Mm-hmm.
too. Yeshua did it. He raised people from the dead, but they don't look at it like that. They look at it how the enchanted ones, because they're
How they were
enchanted,
told to look at it.
they tell them how to look at it. You know,
Yeah.
And
and it's
earlier,
sad.
like Deanna was saying, believe, right? And it's most of us believe things, or most of them believe things because they were told to them. They don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And what doesn't believe? Lie. So you
Mm-hmm.
believe those things that were told to you, but you don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So it's just like when do you get to the point where you actually know and
Mm-hmm.
you question those things that were told to you and who told them to you and who they got them from?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
They've
when you
been
think
made
about,
to. I was gonna say they've been made to depend on them as the ones who are uh, sucking off of them depend on them.
Mm-hmm.
So
And,
they're creating that tick relationship where they
mhm.
sucking on them
Oh.
as they live.
And the
So
least
it's crazy.
and vampire relationship. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you think about the whole beliefs thing, see the 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 level or the belief systems that are currently developed, it was given to us, and you're right, we didn't question it. But the beautiful thing about this knowledge is you start to hear about things that actually make sense. You be like, dang, that makes sense. And then when you start connecting the dots, you realize that 1 + 1 = 2, and I think all my life I've been told 1 + 1 = 4, and it really makes a lot of sense. So when you go back, because a lot of people may wonder, like I think a lot of people are still confused about how we are oppressed, because they went from y'all think about this. Y'all, we used to, they told us about slavery, but we know that slavery, it wasn't them transporting us from that side of Africa to this part. We were actually located in the north and south, and they transfer us from the south to the north and from the north to the south. And so when we ran away, we wasn't familiar with our areas or whatever. But that makes more sense than a 3-month voyage of us packed up in sardines,
Exactly.
peeing and pooping on
Exactly.
ourselves and still living. Come on now.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, it's like, all right, how can I get these people to disassociate themselves from their true origin on a mental, physical, or spiritual level? Can't hit them all at once, I got to do it on different levels. It's levels to it. So when you think about how they do it on the physical level, right? They took the people and they stripped them from their native tongue, right? So this is obviously done through generations, and through the beatings, because the beatings definitely happen. And the more that y'all they tell us in the media, y'all recognize the connection. So like Roots, they beat Kunta every time he said his native land, they beat him until he called himself Toby. And Kunta, he was serious about holding on to that, his identity. He knew that this is his identity, and can't no foreigner, can't no colonizer tell him differently. But he got beat so much, so consistently, that he was just Toby, forget it. I'm Toby. I am Toby. And that's what we're now. We went from being identifying ourselves by our native tribes, because believe it or not, Black didn't even exist before the 11 to 15. It was created in the 11 to 1500s. So before that, what did we call each other? It wasn't Negro. It wasn't color people. And so they beat our native identities out of us through generations so much that now all we know is Black. All we know is colored people. All we know is African American. And when you think about
Well,
how, go ahead, brother.
well, I think, yeah, on that level, I think they really beat the will out of our people
Mm-hmm.
because,
The will to fight for what is right.
right, the will, right, because, um, now what they're not telling in the history books that they make is how we used to get down with them too now. Um, and how the whole reason why they wanted a treaty of peace and friendship is because we used to dig in them. And it's not to brag or
That's our
boast.
primary tactic.
That's what was going on this land. And
Mm-hmm.
even now, this is I want to just touch on real quick. You mentioned how during the time of so-called slavery that they had brought us. They said that they brought us here. 3 months in the Middle Passage, all this stuff. Now, I would just say real quick, you guys know about the Bible, the Holy Bible, and you probably heard the story of Noah. He had to build the ark, right? That was his commission to build the ark because there was going to be a flood that take place. Now, if they say that was 4,000 plus years ago, he built this ark, and he saved some of the animals and every animal after their kind. Long story short, fast forward in our day and age, they're saying they have found remains from Noah's Ark all over the world and different parts, and have made replicas in China and replicas in England, and they have still yet to produce a damn slave ship.
Yeah,
That's
I remember I
important.
had an argument with someone about that one day, and old best friend, he was like, "They do have the slave ships. It's in the museums. I've seen it. It's in the movies. It's in the books. I've seen
Right,
it." What'd you
right,
say to that?
right. Well, where's the force that they used to cut down those trees to make those slave ships? Show me that.
Somewhere in Africa or somewhere in
Or
Europe.
show me the force. You know where they at, man. Show me. Your history books that these Europeans tell you that they give you. Show me where they at, and show me the navigators of those ships, what schools they went to, who trained them, who was their captains that taught them how to navigate those ships, produce the kegs of water, the barrels that um, was on those ships because you needed barrels to balance out the ship. Um, show me the clothes that the so-called slaves was wearing on the middle of the sea because it's cold there. They would have froze. They would have froze to death if they
Mhm.
slaves went there past, packed
Mhm.
up each other. Show me that. Show me the records of all of the slaves there. Um, if they was cargo, right? You have or if they was goods or chattel, produce the records. Show me each of them listed as chattel or property or goods or whatever. And then they don't ever produce this stuff. And in
Yeah, that's
fact,
thorough.
in Texas,
I ain't
they
never
were
seen
taking
that.
out, right, in Texas, they were taking the slavery out of the textbooks back in
Mm,
2013, 14. So um, it's a lot of stuff that has to be debunked. Well, they don't have to be. Just study and look up the truth. Um,
mm,
look at the true timelines and dates, and look at world history, not over here the textbooks that they give you here. And I think a lot of our people, since they don't travel internationally, they don't know true national principles and what the rest of the world say about these events. Right?
mm.
The rest of the world come to this land, and they will see how we act, and they will adapt and say, "Yeah, I guess that really did take place." Because we don't have common sense. But over there, they know the truth. They're not. Um, I had some friends from, I'm not gonna say the name. They came over here. They were shocked to learn some of these stories. We never heard of these stories that y'all learning. It's just not taught over where we at because that stuff didn't happen. And our
Mm,
people, if you tell them that, they're gonna want to fight them.
mm.
Because
So
their
they
God
fight for what they
gave them
believe
that
in.
story.
It's funny
This.
because when you think about how strong people fight and what they believe in, especially our people, how strong they fight into what they believe in. I'm trying to figure out how that relates to what you said earlier about how they lack will, or the will was beaten out of them, because we still have the will to stand strong into the falsehood. So
Well,
But
we,
it's
it's the oppressor. Like they are still gun ho on the things that they were told through oppression. So they have that strong. It's like they have that strong will. Like I know someone who literally believes that they were taught the good things through the educational system because their teachers were quote unquote black, right?
Mhm.
And the will was so strong. It was like I know that they taught me everything that I needed to know because my teachers was black and my teachers was this. And it's like you do realize who paid for those books, right? It wasn't your teachers. Who you think paid for those books for your teacher to teach you through?
Who do you
It
think
wasn't
made
the
those
teachers.
teachers?
It wasn't the teachers, but that person was still gun ho and strong and telling me how I was
mhm.
wrong. And I'm just like, you're really oppressed. Like I realized like you're really messed up in the head. Like
Yeah,
at that point I was like, it's nothing I could do, It's
yeah,
nothing I could do. It was nothing I could do. It was nothing I could say. I was just like, your will is
yeah.
strong on that. You
They
got
Mhm.
this.
love the European more than they love themselves.
Yeah, because we've adopted everything from them. Yeah, this is why I want to go back to the means of oppression. So to go back to the whole identifying ourselves under. So we went from our native lands, and I gave the example of Kunta admitting or identifying himself as Toby's, and we went from our native lands to identifying ourselves to Smith Jones and Johnsons and Becky's and Jessicas, and let me not say keep saying names because they can be like, I'm Rebecca, and my name is Sarah, and that is not an Englishman name, and we don't want to. But the overall concept is our us adopting these names that actually comes from the culture of our oppressors. And so you have the identification piece, right? And then when it comes to what makes in the state law, you have to be competent in order to receive an inheritance. And we have a natural ancestral estate, an inherent I don't know why I can't pronounce inheritance. There we go. We have a natural an ancestral estate and inheritance that we are supposed to get just because these lands belong to our foremothers and forefathers. So by natural birthright, by blood consanguinity, everything, the land and the possessions or things that belong to our ancestors are automatically supposed to go to us, free and clear of debt, completely allodially, you know? And so what happened is, you know, so they got our people to say that we are eventually, of course, through generations, that we're from somewhere else and we're not from here. So when it comes to us once having a Lodia title, and Lodia title was free and clear of any debts, we once had the highest level of ownerships when it came to us owning. Well, let's qualify that because we can't own anything. Technically, everything is owned by the universe. You know, we just take over. We claim the right to claim over these things during our lifetime. So we have the right to claim, you know, the land, the improvements in the lands, the subsurface, above surface rights, all of those that comes with inheriting this estate that was, you know, from our ancestors. So once we said that we were from somewhere else and not from here, that means that we gave them permission to act as if they were the original positions of authority over these things, because we don't claim them. At first, when I first got into the movement, I used to be like, how is this the largest unclaimed estate if the Albions is, you know, ruling it, you know, or if, you know, we're even claiming to be here, you know, or we're here now, so we claim ourselves to be American. So how is it the largest unclaimed estate? And when you realize it, you realize that corporations, when you look up corporations, you see that it's also identified as a person, and trust and other entities as well. But what you also can realize is that corporations can only do business with other corporations. So after the coup d'etat, 1861, actually, before that, because Benjamin Franklin actually registered the United States Service Corporation Company in 1954. So in 1754, forgive me. So in 1754, and corporations can only do business with other corporations. Corporations cannot do business with humans. Okay, only human beings, natural beings, can do business with other natural beings.
Right.
So what they did was they got us to they got us to separate ourselves from our own estate. They took over in the positions of trustees over our estates, and then they converted our unalienable rights that we all have over into corporate entities, and under that structure, that's how they converted our unalienable rights into privileges and immunities. And so when they, through the 14th Amendment, when they converted everyone over to U.S. citizens, they were U.S. citizens under the United States Service Corporation Company. And so, of course, you know, because this United States Service Corporation Company is acting in a position of a government, they're still going to create the agencies and the different programs and the different statutes for the sake of benefiting the people, because they have to continue to operate and portray themselves as government. But the reality is, as a service corporation, they had to continue to provide service for the people. The problem is, it was never a system put in place to benefit the natives of the land. It was always put in place to benefit those people who um, those people who are the added, um, let's consider them subsidiaries. So the foreign nationals that came over here to do business, the reason for why they were considered, they received more benefits than us, is because they help in disconnecting us from our land. So because they came over here and gained their dual citizenship through naturalization, they were actually helping to, benefit off of the estate in which the European Inquisition is, used to feed off of us. So it was everybody that's over here, even us. We are feeding into the system when we don't identify ourselves as a national. So that I could go on all day about how we are being oppressed. And once you start to look into the connections and the way things was into how it is now, you'll start to see how everything has not been monopolized. Like they have, well, we once used to have, you know, they literally have put a value on the streets, the trees, the people, everything a part of the land. They managed to turn it into their financial gain. So it's corrupted. It really is. It's corrupted, and we have to gain our power back once we return back to the knowledge of who we really are.
Yeah, but first things first, you have to nationalize. You have to um, identify yourself or connect yourself with not just a nation, but the nation that you come from. And if you're the ancient mothers and fathers of civilization, um, and you have literally everyone's blood flowing through. Well, that's another. You have everyone's blood flowing through you. So, because you're the mothers and fathers of civilization, you have to identify with a nation to um, enjoy the political status, rights, immunities, and enjoyments that you will have as a nation. Um, and if you have any questions, comments, um, I know we didn't get a chance to answer them this time, or even see them, but we're gonna do this again next Monday, hopefully earlier, and we're gonna strictly go over nationalization and the steps and helping you with the process, how to link yourself back to your nation. Anybody have closing remarks?
When it comes to this Black piece, for all of those people who consider themselves Black, let's start with why. Why do we call each other Black? We know that we already talked about how it was the brand names put on us from our oppressors, but let's think about common sense wise. Why do we call each other Black? Is it because our complexion? We usually say that they hate us because our complexion. We know as nationals that they really hate us because we have the true authority over the dealings of this land, and we've given that authority over to them. But they hate us for us being who we really are. But when it comes to Black, let's look at why we call each other Black. If it's the complexion of our skin, you'll realize that what makes us dark is the carbon. What makes us dark is the 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons, the same 666 in which they teach us to be afraid from and run from the information and everything that comes with that whole 666 piece. There's different layers to it, trust and believe that. But one of the things that this is how they use stuff like 666 to keep us from looking into this information and its significance. So the our complexion is from the level amounts of carbon that we have in our body. So why else do we call each other black? Oh, you know, because it still goes back to the complexion. So I'll say this: another reason why we are not black is because black is an adjective. Black describes a person. It is not a form of identification. That is what linguistics will tell you. Okay, so we not black people, and even when you look at our complexions, and then I saw this video. With more people are getting. It's like the people who know that they're not black. They switch it and they be like, y'all, we are brown, beige, light, light skinned people. Even when we use those terms, we are identifying ourselves with a color. We are not colors. Colors are for things, not identifications for beings. Okay, so we need to identify ourselves by our bloodlines. There's not one bloodline in this nation, this whole entire world that is bloodline of black. There's no land on this world that is black land. It is, it is, it, you got to qualify it. Another reason for why we're not black is because in law, see, we think that, oh, we're just ruled under, or we only protected under the government, which is the pseudo government. It's not, this is de facto government. But the truth of the matter is we're also protected under international law. And in order for us to receive that protection under international law, we have to be tied to a nation. We have to be tied, and we have to have a nationality. And so when we don't tie ourselves to, well, we consider this a nation, but even when we consider ourselves Americans, do we incorporate? Let me ask y'all this: is the United States president, is he the president of the Americas? Well, can you really consider him an American president if he's not the president over all of the Americas, not just the North the North portion of America? No, we call him the American president when he's not the American president. And then he is the president. Only corporations have presidents. Think about it like this.
Can I interject 1 second?
Yeah.
1 second. Mm-hmm. I have to go, but before I leave, I just wanted to say, use your common sense and ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I yield, and I appreciate you guys for listening, and I have to go.
Islam, mother. Thank you.
Peace and love, everyone.
Peace and love.
All right.
Yeah. Look, I know we was starting to wrap it up. Look, I was prolonged it so much. Look, it was almost a good time in there, brother. But anyway, look, I will close it with this. We're not black. We're not black. And when it comes to different reasons why we're not black, it can definitely explain. And when we start to realize how we're not black, it completely makes sense. And so that's something that we look forward to going into further details the next time on the next episode of Matriarchal Mondays.
Peace and love, everybody.
Peace and love.